Hey, I'm Miss Buckley, and I'm part of a special team here at Pike County High School that we are doing the Coffee Bean book study because with our Middle School Matters students. And today we're going to actually hone in on one of the authors of this book, Damon West, over here. Damon West. I'm not good at this camera business, but we're going to do our best. Have you ever wondered how he came up with this coffee bean story? Well, I did. So I did some research on Damon West, and I found out his story is as inspirational as his book. So let me read you about his story. Damon West is like a coffee bean. He wants everyone else to be like a coffee bean too, as he travels the country speaking to teams, schools, and organizations. West isn't like most speakers. To travel out of his home state of Texas, West has to get approval from his parole officer. He will likely be on parole the rest of his life. The former University of North Texas quarterback, we're talking about one of our authors here, Damon West, he was sentenced to 65 years in prison in 2009 for a long series of meth-influenced burglaries. But it's like a miracle, he says, that happened to him. Instead of having to serve that 65 years, he did get parole after 7 years. But he will be on parole for the rest of his life. So when he goes to these schools and these football teams and talks to them and shares this message, he has to get special permission to leave the state of Texas. He says, this is a quote from Damon West, "My life can be a warning and it can be hope for those who need it. In March, West will release his first book, this is before the coffee bean, The Change Agent, How a Former College Quarterback Sentenced to Life in Prison Transformed His World." West gives a lot of credit to Clemson football's head coach, Dabo Swinney, who took the story immediately after hearing it and helped spread his name to all the other football programs. Damon has a powerful story of what can happen and how quickly things can escalate when a person succumbs to drugs. His message and delivery capture his audience. At the end of the day, life is about using our experiences to help others. Damon is passionate about telling his story and helping others make better decisions than he had made. After listening to West speak, Dabo Swinney texted his coaching peer, Nick Saban, about the speech. 3 weeks later, Damon West was in Tuscaloosa speaking to the Alabama football team. Everybody says, but man, that Damon West, he could throw a football. With that ability, Damon says that it came with a lot of breaks for him, that he got out of a lot of trouble because of his ability to throw a football. But eventually it catches up with him because the drug addiction got worse and worse. He was having to steal to get his drug. He was recruited by a lot of schools like Florida State, University of Miami, Florida, and Georgia. As a 3-year starter at a major Texas high school, everybody was looking at him when he was about to graduate from high school. But he was shorter than 6 feet tall. Most of these teams were reluctant to offer scholarships back in the 1990s whenever they were looking at him. But North Texas did offer him a scholarship to come and be quarterback for them. West became the starter during his redshirt sophomore year, throwing a touchdown against number 2 Arizona State. His second game, He separated his shoulder and he was unable to play football ever again, professionally, like at the college level. He still coaches a little bit and helps with high school teams with technique, but as far as being a football player himself, that injury put him out. So then all that was left was his drugs. But he did graduate from high school and from college, and he worked as a stockbroker. And believe it or not, this is where he was first introduced to drugs. He said, I gave up everything for that drug. He said he would eventually have to feed his habit by burglarizing homes, that's stealing from people. Eventually, the Dallas Police Department SWAT team caught up with him. Following his sentencing, his parents told him, you have a debt to pay beyond your prison sentence. And here's what his parents told him. They said, because they were good parents, he came from a loving home of supportive parents. They said to him, we gave you all the love and support to be anything, and you chose to do this? You threw it away? His mother told him, you're not getting into any gangs, and you're not getting any tattoos. And she told him that before he went in prison. He agreed, but he didn't really know what he had agreed to. As he got into the holding cell, he asked his cellmates, who had been in prison there for a while, what it was like. And they said, if you get into a gang, it can make things easier. But his mother had told him, you're not getting in any gangs. There was an older African-American man that Wes knows only as Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson is pivotal to why we have our coffee bean book. This older gentleman, Mr. Jackson, told Damon that he better keep his promise to his mother. No tattoos and no getting into gangs. Mr. Jackson is where Damon West first learned about being a coffee bean. He told West to imagine prison as a boiling pot of water with 3 things that go into the boiling water. And as we've learned in our coffee bean study, it was the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean. This came from this man in prison, in the holding cell, named Mr. Jackson. He said, a carrot turns soft, an egg turns hard on the inside, and a coffee bean, well, it changes the name of the water to coffee. Think about that. The coffee bean is the smallest of the 3, but it had the power to change the atmosphere of the entire pot. No matter who you are, big or small, you can change the entire atmosphere around you, Damon West says. He says, I survived one of the hardest places to do time. Not just survived, but I thrived. Anyone can conquer any problem they have. 7 years and 3 months into his 65-year sentence, he earned parole and knew that he had to give back and spread these new lessons that he had learned from Mr. Jackson. He is sober now for many, many years, and he works at Provost Umphrey Law Firm in Beaumont, Texas. That's where his job is. But he makes a lot of money going around speaking and helping people. He started speaking at Lamar University, and this quickly spread across the college football teams, with him going to speak to different teams like Clemson, Alabama, Michigan State, Pitt, Texas A&M, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, and we can go on and on. They listen to this story of the coffee bean too, just like we do in our lessons during Discovery. For some reason, this is what Damon says, for some reason, I came out the other side of prison with my purpose intact, and I knew what it was to do. It was to go out and find people to help. People get different things from my story, but I change the atmosphere positively around me, and everyone has that power, but it is a choice that we make. We all have choices. So I want to thank Damon today, along with the other author, John Gordon, for creating this simple little book and going around and speaking to people and helping them, and then letting us do it whenever they aren't able to come to our school. We're able to share it with y'all during Discovery. Y'all enjoy part of the story today.